Greetings once again, my friends, ladies and gentlemen, all over the world, my audience and my followers. It's a nice moment again for us to meet after a certain duration. Well, today I want us to focus on something different, but in line with what we are discussing as far as this channel is concerned. As I've said previously, this channel is basically about what I'm doing as an author. So today I want to focus on the first book that God helped me to do in the year 2014. The book is a very interesting one because of the details I'm going to share with you about it. One, the book is about Pentecostalism in Luo Nyanza, and I've titled it Pentecost Revisited in Luo Nyanza. But I've narrowed it a little bit about formation of one particular church called Voice of Salvation and Healing Church. This is an African-initiated church and Pentecostal in nature. Well, the reason why I came up with this book, one, probably for the sake of those who are following, I did the Bachelor of Education Arts, and I majored in religion or other religious studies in Kenyatta University. So during this time, when I joined the campus, once in a while we could meet our friends and colleagues, and you would introduce yourself and more so with where you fellowship. So I used to say I'm so and so, but I fellowship with VOSH. VOSH is just an abbreviation of the Voice of Salvation and Healing Church. And to my amazement, most people were like, what's that? We've never heard of such kind of a church. Of course, I had to struggle to explain myself about the church. And then the moment I would say that this is a church that has existed and was registered by the colonial government in Kenya, everybody's like, where is it? And where can we find it? We've never heard of this. Personally, I got challenged. And I said, wow, something needs to be done. Again, later on, when we were given an assignment in one of the units we were taking at campus called New Religious Movements, my lecturer, Dr. Philemona Mwaura, currently a professor at the same Department of Philosophy and Religious Studies in Kenyatta University. She gave us an assignment. Though I can't remember exactly what the assignment was, but I remember vividly that I did something, and I wrote something about women leadership and participation, and I narrowed it case study of VOSH Church. And the moment she returned the scripts back, she gave me a comment, and she said, Wilson, this is an original area that has never been studied. You can think of coming for masters in this. To me, that was the idea again. So I said, well, this is an opportunity. So those two factors really motivated me to come up with this. So indeed, this book was as a result of my research for my master's thesis, which I did in Kenyatta University in religious studies. Now, this book is a very interesting book because, one, it came from scratch. Most of the information I got were from oral information from the pioneers, those who saw and witnessed some of these occurrences face to face. In this book, of course, the content, if I just give you a summary of it, I've talked about what happened before the missionaries came in Kenya. I've narrowed it to Luo Nyanza specifically. Of course, after the missionaries also, I've narrated how things were in the religious scene until the extent that African independent churches started coming up. Of course, I've also explained into details what happened those days. But then, by this time, Kenya was still under the colonial government. So I've discussed into details what happened those days. But most importantly, I've discussed on how VOSH Church came or was birthed. And I've mentioned quite a number of people who contributed towards this, whom some, up to date, many people don't know that they really made a contribution towards the establishment of Pentecostal movement within Luo Nyanza. To be very specific, one of them is the late Bildad Kagia, mostly is known as a politician. even in our country. But the book has brought out very clearly his role as a religious leader and more so the Pentecostal movement in Luo Nyanza. Of course, I've given into details. For a very long time, by the way, if you read the book, the people who embraced Pentecostalism in Luo Nyanza were called Jokagia, which is loosely translated people of Kagia. And the reason is he had a lot of influence, which I've described in the book into details. Another person who is very significant in Pentecostalism in Luo Nyanza is a South African Zulu man by the name Nicholas Bengu. Nicholas Bengu, many people don't know about him, but I've highlighted through the research and what I established on the ground his role, or the role he played in the Pentecostal movement. Of course, after that, I've brought the idea how the registration of the churches came up, and more so VOSH Church, under the colonial government in 1956. Of course, there were a lot of issues that came up, which I don't want to go into details right now, but they are very interesting. They have been highlighted in the book. Of course, towards that, I've talked about the establishment of the church after registration, about the spread in the country. I've also highlighted about the founder and more so the founder leaders. I've described into details. But significantly, I've mentioned what I would call a hot potato. And here I mean it's something that many people don't want to listen to because it was unexpected. I've talked about Sikhism. When the church began, there were splits at some point. But there are two major splits that really rocked the church. I've discussed both ends. God helped me to reach out to those who left and those who remained. So I brought the two sides of the story, so it's upon the readers to weigh. But the reason why I did this because I wanted people to learn so that we don't, the mistakes that our forefathers in the faith made, we should not be victims of the same. If there are places where we can correct, the better for us. Of course, those two major splits I've encountered, I've discussed into details. They're in the book. And then, of course, after that, I've also talked about the leadership briefly. And then towards the end, I've just given a few recommendations. But that's not the end. The most important thing that was the first volume or first edition of the book. And I'm here to bring to us good news that I've worked on the second edition of the book, which is very, very detailed because there are certain gaps that I felt were there, and then certain information also have been beefed up. And I want to encourage all of us to have a look and access to the second edition, which is very, very detailed. Among other things that I've highlighted there, in addition to what I've said in the first edition, I've talked about succession in the book, because the founder Archbishop, before he died, he ensured there was a transition of leadership, which from the face value, many people didn't know what transpired behind the scenes. So I've discussed into details what happened, and probably people can pick up one from there. The reason why I focused on succession also, in addition to other information, because as it is anticipated with most African initiated churches, at times of leadership transition, there's always push and pull here and there. And mostly it normally brings to a split. Unlike that in VOSH, such was not, such did not occur. So I brought out lessons that we can learn out of that, and probably how they managed apparently a smooth succession. So there are certain details I've also added in the book, including the beliefs and practices. What do they believe on? And what are some of their practices which are making them a bit unique or distinctive from any other African instituted church around? But most importantly, I've talked about their leadership structure and how they manage leadership, and how they have also organized their own leadership as a church, which has made them to be a bit together, and has made them to move and do much they've done up to date. Otherwise, thank you so much for listening. Looking forward for another episode, same channel. Thank you.